carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome on this very hot day in Africa, where we are starting off with a pile of hot dogs. This is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Hello and welcome on a bright and sunny day here on the Sunset Safari, where on this World Wildlife Day we are privileged enough to sit with Africa's second most endangered carnivore. And not just one, but apparently 15 of them are hidden, dotted around somewhere here. What a spectacular way to start off our afternoon. I, for one, will most definitely not be complaining about this. Oh, we've got one sitting up. And just while we are here, very warm welcome to Mount Horeb Elementary and to Hampton Oaks. It is lovely to have all of you on board, and I'm not sure if you realize it, but it is very, very appropriate that you should be joining us this afternoon, and I'll explain that in a second. My name is Jamie. I was about to say this afternoon, my name is Jamie. It's always Jamie. And on camera with me is Dave, and we're coming to you from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. Now, for all of our viewers, both new and regular alike, please send through your questions using the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and we'll get right to them once we've discussed some of the voices and questions of our school kids joining us this afternoon. Now, today's World Wildlife Day, somewhat appropriately. It's also, just to pop this out of the way quickly, my birthday, so thank you to all of the... Thank you, Davy! I don't want to shout too loudly because of the dogs. But thank you to all of you who've sent through birthday wishes. But far more importantly, I'm very lucky to share it with World Wildlife Day, the day upon which the CITES treaty was established. Oh, here comes the dog, here. Look here. Isn't that special? Now she's going to walk right next to us and go and listen to this. This is the alpha female. Listen to that response. Oh no, it had something in its mouth. That's what it's all about. Yeah, a piece of bone. Amazing sounds that they're making. Watching special scenes like this gives us a very interesting answer to Miss Hamilton's class's question: why do we need to protect wildlife? First of all, sitting in wildlife and in nature enriches us as human beings. To see scenes like this, there really is a connection that if we lost, we would be absolutely devastated as a species. Wildlife is very important to the balance of nature out here. Each and everything from the smallest ant to the mammoth elephant or a blue whale plays a crucial role in the balance of the ecosystem. And most importantly, I feel as though we owe it to the wildlife. I'm sure you'd agree. I mean, look at the, if not trust, then certainly the complete confidence that these dogs have in us, that they've come and laid down right next to our vehicle. I feel as though we owe it to them. We've taken so much from the wildlife away already that moments like this and protecting and treasuring this is a very important thing. Now, Joe, you want to know what is being done to help save wild dogs. And just quickly, to give you an idea of numbers, there are less than 500 left in South Africa, and around about less than around about 200 or so in the reserve that we're in. So this is hands down one of the biggest populations that we have. The biggest population that we have in South Africa occurs here in the greater Kruger National Park area. And you want to know, Joe, you want to know what is being done to protect wild dogs as much as possible. So there is an organization, look at this. Hello, doggy. Right next to us. There's an organization called Endangered Wildlife Trust that does a huge amount in terms of monitoring these animals, running vaccination programs, running reintroduction programs to places where wild dogs have been exterminated through various reasons, whether it's by farmers or the fact that they have this, they used to have, it's changing slowly, this terrible reputation as being pests to farmers and killing livestock and so on. So there's lots being done, a lot of monitoring, reintroduction to different places, and importantly, research so that we can actually understand how we can best go about helping these creatures, because essentially the more you understand about a species, the more you can do to help to protect it. And the theme, of course, of this year's World Wildlife Day is listen to the young voices. And I think we've got lots of young voices joining us this afternoon who have some amazing questions that they're sending through. Hey, Smelly. Yes. I love the smell of wild dogs. They smell a little bit like wet dog, dirty wet dog, but it's a smell that I've come to absolutely love. It is a natural smell. It's a very real smell to enjoy out here. So while Dave and myself bake in the sun, we're really enjoying seeing them resting in the shade. Now, Wilson, you want to know a little bit more about wild dogs. Wilson, no, wild dogs are not the same as hyenas. Hyenas are actually in a completely separate family, so they're not dogs at all. They belong in a family called the Hyenidae family. Wild dogs are true canids, but they're not domestic dogs. They're not just dogs that have become feral or stray. They are a different species completely. They're basically the African equivalent of a wolf. They work in quite a similar way. They're obviously much, much smaller than the wolves that you might find in North America or else in Europe. They're much, much smaller, but they have an alpha male and an alpha female, and they also all work together as a pack to help to raise the puppies, look after the puppies, and look after each other as well. So they are true dogs. They're also known as painted wolves, painted dogs, which I think is a beautiful name for them. Because wild dogs sometimes give people the idea that they are just dogs. They're not just dogs. Not that dogs are bad, but they are a unique species all of their own. I can actually hear this one panting. They're so hot this afternoon. It's over 90 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm glad I've got a nice seated position here, almost in the shade. I don't know how Tayla's feeling about walking in this heat, but let's go and find out.
Jamie, yes, today's heat is quite something, isn't it? Craig, on the other hand, is dying. Now, my name is Tayla, and the name I just said just a moment ago is Craig, and he is on camera this afternoon. Rexon is assisting us, making sure we are out nice and safe, preventing from any animals sneaking up to us. Now, we're out here on foot, walking around, doing the most exciting things, of course, and one of the most favorite things out here, and I hope that all of you watching from the different schools from all over the world that have tuned in this afternoon will enjoy it too. And seeing as though it's World Wildlife Day, I thought we'd talk about one of my favorite animals, elephants. On this very, very hot day, we might be lucky enough to find some. And we've actually got their footprints walking along this little animal pathway. Well, you can actually see it's actually a mitre drain that's dug off. So this is something that we do for conservation, actually, is we dig these big drains that go off of the side of the roads, as well as with a big bump in the road to stop the water from sitting on them and prevent erosion. So that goes all the way there. But it also works as, well, an elephant footpath, and they would have walked down here, and if we carry on down that way, which we probably will, we'll try and follow these elephants, we might follow the exact route that they walked. But look how big their footprints are. Let me stand in one. Now, the track I'm going to stand in looks to be like a female's footprint, or perhaps a young male. But you can see, I can fit both feet in very, very easily. But if we were to find a big male, a big bull's elephant footprints, they will be almost double the size. I can easily stand. Craig could probably put 1 foot in with me. What size shoes do you wear, Craig? 9 or a 10, Craig says. So you could probably put my 2 size 7 shoes and one of Craig's 9 or 10 shoe in it, and that would be the size of a big elephant's footprint. So maybe we'll be lucky. Maybe we find a whole breeding herd. Maybe we even find a big elephant bull, which will be a huge surprise because they are amazing on foot. But I think let's follow them. Let's keep walking down along this pathway, which the elephants have now used. Hello, Jonah. Jonah, you're wondering how hot it is. It's exceptionally hot at the moment. It may look like I'm glistening, I'm glowing. I'm not. It's just very hot out here. So, Jonah, it's about 90° Fahrenheit at the moment. Pretty hot, eh? And like I said, we're walking around. So this is a good idea to also visit watering holes on a day like today. Heat like this, well, it's not normal every single day. We're actually coming out of summer now and starting to head into autumn, and it's going to start to get a little bit chillier. And all the animals this evening, or perhaps even now, right now, could be having a drink. So we're going to go and look at some natural pans. This is one of my favorite spots to walk. It's really, really beautiful out here, and we're going to walk on this animal pathway. What birds do we have here? I can hear them calling. Can you hear that? It sounds like hornbills. Craig, can you see them yet? They are hiding in this big knobthorn tree. Let's go walk a little bit closer and see if we can find them. They must be right at the tips and the tops of the branches, which is normally where the hornbills will go. And it sounds like they might be having a territorial dispute. So that bird would want to be on the tops of the trees so that the other bird could see them and say, hey, this is my spot. Let's see, maybe we get a view this side. We've got to be very careful as we're walking through this long grass too, because there could be a buffalo or any animal just sitting down and just in the shade of the tree. Where's this bird? There's one on that tree. There's the one that's calling on the top of that marula tree. That looks like a big male just from the size of his beak. Can you see him? Look how beautiful, hey? So that's not the one that we could hear calling. He's calling quite a way away. This other one is sitting right at the top of the knobthorn, like I said, and the canopy of leaves is just too dense for us to see up top there. But like you saw there, standing up loud and proud saying, hey, this is my area over here. Now we're going to keep going, we're going to keep walking along this animal pathway. We might actually have to be a little bit quiet. It's very thick here to make sure that we stay nice and safe. But you're going to go across now to Tristan, who's looking at one of the bigger dams.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our sunset safari from me, Tristan. And on camera today, I've got Lamek. So Lamek is a cameraman that's trying out with us today. So everyone's going to have to be nice and easy on him and be very, very nice to him. And so, as Tayla was mentioning earlier, we've decided because it's such a hot day that we would have come up and checked at Buffelshoek Dam. So we're trying to see if there's any sign of anything at the waterhole. And so far, it's been a little bit quiet. There hasn't been too much. But as I say that, a hippo is just popped its head up. So there we go. There's a lone male hippo that's just popped his head, and as that happened, back under again. So we've actually been sitting here for quite a bit and he hasn't been up at all. So that's a nice little surprise and pays lots of dividends for us coming to the waterhole and sitting in the sun for a little bit. There's also some Egyptian geese which are slowly paddling along on the edge of the water there. They are beautiful duck-like birds that we get, and I'm quite envious of them. I would love to be in the water just like they are. So Ashley, you're wondering what it would be like to be out on safari and to work with animals and around animals. Well, Ashley, there's not many things that can describe the feeling. It is an absolutely amazing thing to be a part of this. It's to spend time around wild animals and to see them in their wild state is really something that I can't explain. It just goes right into the core of you, and it makes you just feel so many emotions that you can't normally feel. And it's really something that like I say, I can't even explain it. Just every day getting up and being able to do this is such a special thing. So it is amazing to be out here. Sometimes we take it for granted because we get up every day and we come out and you're around nature all the time, and you just tend to forget about all the little things that go on. We sometimes get a bit focused on the big animals, but it is so incredible to watch how all the animals fit together and how they all will help each other and how they all link in some way. So we're very fortunate to be out here. And in terms of looking after the animals, as it is World Wildlife Day and it's all about conservation, we don't do too much in the way of helping the animals out in looking after them, other than if somebody has tried to hurt them, then we will help them look after them. But us being in places like this and being able to broadcast all over the world and show the youth of today, as well as all the other viewers that we have, what's going on, and try and educate them about African wildlife, and hopefully as we grow, maybe wildlife around the world, as to the plight of these animals and the responsibility that we have to look after them and conserve them, is really quite something. So that for us, those are the really good things about this job. It's really, really special to be able to share all of this with all of you. Now, I was a little bit naughty. I forgot to welcome our 2 schools that have joined us. I'm sorry about that. It's nice to have you with us, guys. I'm glad that you are here today, and on such a special day as well, because it is World Wildlife Day, which is an amazing concept. And I believe this year's theme is youthful voices and listen to the youth of the world. So it would be amazing to hear from you guys. I would love to hear from you and on your thoughts on what conservation is, and methods of conservation that we have out here, and how we're going to conserve these animals, and just what your thoughts are as the youth. You are in the prime position to tell us what the youth of today is feeling and how you think about wildlife and the conservation of wildlife. So you can send your questions through, ask your teacher, or even send your thoughts through your teacher as well. It would be lovely to hear how you guys feel about everything. Now, I'm up here by this dam not only because of the hippo that was there and the beautiful Egyptian geese, but I'm also up here looking for lions. So I'm going to try and have a look around and see if I can find them. One of the game drives had them this morning, so we're going to try to see if we can locate on them. Now, while we do that, let's go back across to Djuma, my favorite animals.
Absolute one of my favorite animals, and certainly a favorite of, I think, lots of the staff here at Wild Earth. Just after the end of our sunrise safari, after we'd got all of the sort of morning admin out of the way, we all came out to see them once again, and they were all wallowing in the mud. So that's why some of them are actually looking a little bit scruffy. It's because they've been doing what wild dogs love to do, something that hyenas love to do as well, which is to climb into a big puddle of muddy water. It's basically like a spa treatment for them, and of course helps to control external parasites, but most importantly cools them down on these blisteringly hot summer's days. Hello to Emily. Emily, you want to know if we could pet the dogs. Emily, no. Absolutely not. So they're completely wild animals, and even though they might look similar to a domestic dog or a pet dog, they have to be treated with complete respect. And if I were to corner one and try to pet it, if I got out of the car, especially now with this female so close to me, if I got out of the car now, they'd probably run away. And if I were to try and grab one, it would bite me quite hard. So, although wild dogs are not dangerous, there's no recorded cases of them ever attacking a human being, I don't want to go and touch them. I remember we've got dogs and cats have had tens of thousands of years of domestication. They have become pets for human beings. They've become reliant upon us. And I think that's enough, don't you? We've got horses, we've got dogs, we've got cats. We've got enough animals that we don't need to try and tame a wild animal to keep it in a house or to keep it in a garden. Imagine how sad that would be. And that's something we often talk about, is that wild animals shouldn't be pets. Exotic animals should never be kept as pets because we just can't recreate the life that they live in the wild. And it's not fair to them. Even if they're used to you, even if they've become used to human contact, maybe they even become attached to you, it's still actually quite cruel. And I see pictures of people with monkeys as pets, people with pictures with wild cats as a serval. or savanna cats, which is a mixture between a serval and a domestic cat, as pets. And it always makes me really sad because I think about that animal that should be living out here in the wild. These wild dogs can run miles and miles in one day. Right now they're fast asleep because they're tired. They're tired and it's far too hot to go running anywhere. But when they do get up, they go racing through the bush so fast that we can barely keep up with them. Sometimes we don't keep up with them. And they have these massive home ranges, far bigger than your garden, far bigger than your school fields, your sports fields, even bigger than that. So to keep them contained in one area would be a very sad thing indeed. Hello, girl. Up you go. Now, Bella, you want to know why aren't there a lot of wild dogs left? Well, Bella, one of the reasons is because they need such a huge amount of space, and human beings have been very, very bad at sharing. We tend to build more and more farms, more buildings, and we just get further and further into wilderness areas, so their territories are getting smaller. And when we come in, we bring domestic dogs, and domestic dogs carry diseases. And because these wild dogs are such social creatures, you can see they lie on top of each other, gather together, it transmits very quickly. So they get diseases that they're not immune to that make them very, very sick, and they die. And that's one of the big reasons. Then we try to put them in fenced areas where there's lots of lions, and lions will kill wild dogs. All predators will kill other predators. It's not just lions. It's just the way of the world out here. It's to reduce competition. That is their natural instinct. But if you've got too many lions in a small area, your wild dogs or your leopards or your hyenas, those populations are going to suffer as well. So those are some of the reasons why wild dogs need such intensive protection and to be looked after. And of course, as I said, they were also treated as pests by farmers, because farmers were scared that they were going to come and eat all of their livestock because wild dogs are such efficient hunters that they will catch and kill lots of things during the day, and this gave them a really bad reputation. And even at the start, the beginning of this conservation area, when Kruger was first started to be thought about and founded, one of the conservation policies was to go and shoot all the predators, including wild dogs, which is why we're so lucky that our understanding of the balance in nature has changed and improved. Wouldn't it be utterly tragic if there were no more wild dogs? Look how beautiful they are. Look at the amazing patterns on their coat. Each and every one is completely unique. Each one looks different. Now, my favorite thing about wild dogs, apart maybe from the sounds that they make, I love the sounds that they make, is their huge ears. When you get all of them looking at you, it's like a whole load of Mickey Mouses looking at you through the grass. Stephanie, you want to know why do wild dogs have such big ears? Well, it plays a big role in the way in which they hunt and the way in which they find each other again after a hunt. So when they go running through the bush, it's rather chaotic when they're hunting. They don't stalk something altogether, they just run through the bush, and they try and grab whatever they happens to run out in front of them. And what often happens is they get lost, they lose each other, and then having those massive ears that act like radar dishes will help them determine where prey is, and most importantly where the other members of their pack are. Because wild dogs are by nature social predators. They cannot exist without company. And even when they disperse away from their packs, they will disperse in groups rather than on their own. So a wild dog always wants to be with other wild dogs, and they make this amazing contact call. It's a sort of I don't want to do it too loudly, but a whoop, 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 low sound. They make it when they stand on the road or stand on the ground and point their face towards the ground, and then they make that sound. And then you heard earlier those exciting yipping sounds, and that's actually one of the sounds that they make when they beg for food. There you go, Ellen. You wanted to know why they make those noises. So wild dogs are very interesting. They are submissive rather than aggressive. Dylan, sorry. Dylan, you wanted to know why they make those noises. Sorry, Dylan, my apologies. It's because they are quite submissive, and they basically, what happens is the puppies, when they start to go with the pack will go off and hunt and then bring them food. And even when they're in the den site, the other members of the pack will bring food for the mother and for the puppies. And then they make that sound to basically beg for food, and then the adults will regurgitate whatever they've eaten. So they basically vomit it up, which sounds kind of gross, but when you think about it, it makes sense, because wild dogs are quite small, so they can't fight off any of the biggest scavengers unless you've got big numbers of them. So rather than trying to either bring the puppies to the kill or trying to take the kill to the puppies, basically what they do is they gobble it up as fast as they can, and then they run back to the den, and then they vomit it up. They can't carry it in a nice Tupperware like we could with our leftovers, so they have to carry it in their stomachs. Our wild dogs aren't rushing around at the moment, although they will a bit later. I'm hoping they're going to go and swim in a pan around here. Let's go and see what's happening at the pan that Tayla's found.
Well, this is exactly the pan that the wild dogs should come and swim in. It's perfect. It's just the right amount of deep. Well, actually, I don't know how deep it is because I'm a bit too scared to go in there myself. You don't know what could be lurking in this water. But this is a natural pan, so this wasn't created by us at all. This was created by the animals. So something like a warthog would have found an elephant footprint as it walked through here after a rainy day and thought that it was a nice little hole to wallow in. So it would have wallowed away, and then a family of warthogs would have come through, done the same thing, and then maybe one buffalo, two buffaloes, a rhinoceros and a hippo, or even an elephant would come through here, and they make it bigger and bigger. And now Akira, I've asked a question on if the elephants would like to go in water, and you're quite right, they do definitely love water. And since we were focusing on elephants this afternoon, that's one of their favorite things to do is swimming. When I was up in Zambia, I've never seen such happy elephants as I've seen as the ones that spent their days swimming in the rivers or to and from the islands to feed on the nice grass. It's pretty amazing, and they're really good swimmers too. They stick their trunks up and they almost snorkel and they swim. It's really incredible to see something like that. Now, there aren't any elephants here, but I think that there were some that came for a drink a little bit earlier today, because all the way down that side, I think it was just a bull, you can see there's a wet patch on the ground. So I reckon that an elephant bull on his own maybe came past to this lovely muddy water. I don't know if he would have drank. He possibly, because it's so dirty and elephants like to drink clean water, probably would have covered himself with some mud, which is really, really good sunscreen. Colin, you're wondering how an elephant sucks up water through its trunk. Pretty easy, like when you use a straw, when you're having a nice cool drink, you put the straw in and you suck up. Essentially, the elephants are doing the same things, but with their nose. So it's almost like they're taking a breath, isn't it? But then they're able to stop the water from going all the way into their sinuses. It's like a big tank, and you can almost spray it out. So you know those toys that you have when you're swimming in the pool and you want to spray your brother or sister and your friends and you shoot the water out? That's exactly what an elephant's trunk is. It's like a hose pipe, but they have to suck it up. They can suck quite a bit of water up there, anywhere between 10 and 11 liters of water, which is quite a lot, though they mess a lot of it as they're trying to drink and pour it into their mouths. A lot of it goes everywhere. But like I said, this water, they wouldn't want to drink it. They'll just come here and have a little bit of a mud bath. I might actually a little bit later have to put a bit of mud on my face. I put some sunscreen on so that I don't get sunburn, but I feel because it's so hot today and we're all sweating so much that it's probably going to come off of my face in the next 45 minutes. And sunscreen from the earth, which is the mud, is incredible. Come and have a look what these elephants were even doing. And not just elephants, rhinos, buffaloes, even a hippo and a warthog. Can you see all of the mud going down this tree? There's a little bit over here, but this entire tree is actually covered in it. And this one is a better example. See how it's nice and low? Look at all this crusty mud. I don't know if you'll see it from that side, but there's a lot of crusty mud just on the other side of this branch, which is really cool. You'll have to come all the way around to have a look at it. Here it is. Can you see that? See here it's coming off. Now it's not fresh, so this is old. So after the elephants, the rhinos, the buffalo, they all have a mud bath to cool themselves down. It then dries and goes crusty. If you've ever put mud on your face before, you'll know how tight your skin pulls, and it does the same thing for the animals, but it also suffocates all of the parasites, so the ticks, so the fleas, all of those horrible things that are there feasting on the animal's blood. But when it dries, they come through and they do this. And you can hear that noise. That's exactly what it sounds like. I've once walked around the corner and knew that there was a mammal here, not because I could hear it making its call, because I could hear it eating, but because I could hear it scratching up on the post, and it was a buffalo that just had a wallow. So that's what you can do as well when you're out here, is use your ears pretty well. But this is also a scratching post. So it takes those dead ticks off and rubs that mud nicely into their skin, and off they can go. Now I'm going to quickly loop around, but I'm going to come around to where Craig is. Look at this big fallen thing. Now, I know the schools are on drive, but some of the regular viewers that are also watching may have remembered this big knob thorn used to stand up just in here, and it was loose. Remember, I shook it and a lizard fell out of it? Remember that? This is it. And I said to you it wasn't going to be too long before it eventually falls over. And I think that's what's happened here, is an elephant has come up, had a rub too much and linked too much against it, and it's toppled over into the water. But we're going to carry on searching now for an actual elephant and probably another pan to put some mud on my face. But we haven't seen Tristan for a while yet. I know he was planning on going to look for the lions. I wonder where he is.
So Tayla, we're just looking around trying to find them, and we found where they've been sleeping. You can see the grass has all been flattened, so they were here during the day and they had a really good rest and a nap. Now, given that it is quite hot, I do not think that they would have gone very far at all, so I'm sure that they are somewhere close by here. It's now just a matter of finding them, so we're going to have to check under all the shady trees and check where all the shade is to be able to find them. So I'm just going to do a little loop around here and just check maybe they're here. If not here, then they could have gone for a drink of water. When they do mate, you find that the female does move quite a bit, and then the male will follow, but that is definitely where they were sleeping today. So now it's just a matter of actually finding where they've disappeared to. On conditions like this, being that lions are so lazy, I don't think they will go far. Wilson, you're wondering, how do we know what area needs protection for the animals? Well, a lot of the areas that have been protected already were areas that were marked really long ago by presidents of the countries, knowing full well that as our numbers are growing, so the space for the animals is going to get less and less. And so they demarcated certain areas to be able to protect the wildlife that we have. Now, in terms of these days, when we look at places we want to protect, it's normally places that have very specific type of animals or vegetation that is very rare. So we try and protect animals that are not very common, or types of areas that are not common. So certain types of desert or types of wilderness areas like the savanna, bushveld that we're in here. So these are all places that you would want to protect. And then, like I say, certain animals that numbers have decreased, they get protection because they need it. Otherwise they're going to disappear and we're not going to be able to see them anymore. So things like rhinos, elephants, lions, they all need protection because their numbers are declining quite quickly. Right, now I'm just driving on the edge of this open area trying to see if there's any sign of these lions. There's no lion, but I can see a tiny little antelope. You see it just straight through there. It's called a little Steenbok. I think you're going to have to go a little bit to your left. Maybe go in a little bit for me. A little bit to your left. There we go. So you can see it just through that gap there is a tiny little Steenbok. So that is our smallest antelope. It is very little, and that is a adult, fully grown Steenbok. Can you believe it? It looks like a little baby impala. So in terms of a size, that would be the size of a small dog. That's how big that is. and they like to hang around in areas like this where there's lots of long grass that they can hide in so that the predators don't see them. Now this is a little bit too small for the lions, so even if the lions are lying here somewhere, they really wouldn't go after this little Steenbok. It's too fast and too small for them, so they would expend too much energy and not get enough back, and that's why they won't chase it. So this little guy is hunted mostly by the faster cat, the cheetah. You'll find the wild dogs that Jamie's got also do hunt these little ones from time to time. But don't worry, these guys are really, really fast. They're an incredibly agile little antelope, and they'll run and they dart from side to side, and it makes it very difficult to catch them. The other thing that they do, which is very, very clever, and it's where they've gotten their name from, so steen is an Afrikaans word for a rock or a brick, and it basically means when these guys are frightened, they'll sit down and they'll bend their neck and tuck themselves into a tight little ball, and it looks like a little rock in the grass, and so they camouflage really, really well, and then the predator walks right past them. Now you can hear the Steenbok just ran away, and so the francolin got a little fright. So that's the bird that's making the noises. It saw this thing bounding along and maybe thought it was a predator, and that's why it's flown up and it's squawking, trying to alert everybody that there's been a disturbance. Alright, well, talking about Steenbok and dogs chasing them, I think let's go back to Jamie while we search for these lions and see what those little dogs are up to.
Oh, speaking of dogs and Steenbok, we saw this particular pack of wild dogs with another type of small antelope called a daker a little bit earlier. One of them is up at the moment, so I'm just going to switch off my engine. One of the female that was right next to me moved ever so slightly, so I was able to shift around and reposition so that we're not sitting quite so close to them. Oh, back into the shade again. Now, apparently there are 15 members of this wild dog pack. I can only see 7 that were lying there under the shade of the tree. There they are, over there. I don't know where the rest of them are, and that's why I was driving around. I was just trying to get a chance to see where the rest of them have hidden themselves. Caitlin, you want to know, how do the wild dogs find food? Hold on one second, Caitlin. I'm going to try and get us a better shot. I've moved as well, just so that one of the other vehicles can share the sighting with us. Now, Caitlin, you want to know, how do wild dogs find food? Good question, Caitlin, because they're one of Africa's most effective predators. They're very, very good at finding food for themselves. There you go. Hello, boy. We'll just stay here. He's slightly more jumpy than the rest of the pack, so I'm going to give him a little bit more space. You can see he's watching us with his big ears. Caitlin, that go sneaking through the bush and try to ambush their prey. Wild dogs don't bother with any subtlety. All they do is they run. They'll spread out in a sort of a line almost, and they will just sprint through the bush. And when they do that, especially with big packs, obviously small antelope and scrub hares get a fright. They try to run away, but there's so many dogs around, and they are so quick and have such phenomenal stamina that they just simply cannot get away, and the wild dogs manage to grab them and feed off them. Now, here's the fascinating thing. I told you a little bit about the fact that the adults will go back to the den site and regurgitate for the puppies. Sometimes adults will actually regurgitate for other adults as well. Let's say one of them got a good meal, but the others got separated during the chase, and when they get back, the whole carcass is gone. The wild dogs have eaten it all. Then they will make those begging sounds that you heard earlier, and the adults will regurgitate for them. Very good question, and I apologize, Nina. I should have clarified exactly what I mean. You want to know, what is a den site? Well, a den site is where animals go to have their babies. And if it's a leopard, they'll try and find a nice hidden rocky area, maybe somewhere that's covered over by tree roots or something like that, somewhere properly a secret for them to have their babies. Lions as well, very similar places. And with something like, for example, a wild dog or a hyena clan, they will go to a termite mound. So what they'll do is they'll go to a termite mound where there have been holes dug out by either aardvarks, warthogs, porcupines, and so on, and they will go in there. Now just hold on 1 second, I'm sorry, I need to do some shuffling. This is a bit of a narrow road, and there is another vehicle that wants to see. Hold on 1 second. Andrew, if you just stand by there, I'll move so that you can come in where I am. Okay, sorry everybody. We just need to do some shuffling because we have spent a long time with these wild dogs and there are people that want to come and have a look at them. Imagine how exciting this must be if you are a tourist and you have an opportunity to come and see a view like this one. Must be really, really special. And the nice thing is, of course, the tourists bring in money, and money goes towards conservation of animals. So it fits in really nicely with our theme of World Wildlife Day, because these people are actually helping to pay for the protection of these animals. And I think that's really special, don't you? Sorry, we might have to wait a little bit for another view of the wild dog. Let me see if there's any hiding under the shade here. No problem, Andrew. Ronnie, you want to know what wild dogs are scared of. Sorry, I'm just waving hello to the guests. Ronnie, one of the big things that they're scared of is lions. And Brent actually had a really sad sighting. You haven't met Brent, but Brent had a really, really sad sighting where he saw a lioness kill a wild dog. And as I said earlier, that is basically behavior that is completely natural. It's not that the lioness was being vicious. She had cubs in the area, she was feeling protective, and all predators will kill another predator if they have the opportunity. Lions are the big ones. Other than that, wild dogs are not too scared of other predators because they're pack animals. So even something like a hyena often finds itself in big trouble if it decides to get too close to a wild dog pack. And we've also seen that, wild dogs chasing hyena away. One of the most amazing sightings I ever had, speaking about den sites, was at a hyena den site where wild dogs came running through, and all of the baby hyenas, the hyena cubs, raced into their holes, and then the wild dogs dashed past with all of the other hyenas sort of growling where they were. Unfortunately, the view is a little tricky there. Well done, Dave. You can sort of see him. Here he is, just poking its head out. Now, Genesis, you want to know if there are any other animals that are in danger. Genesis, yes, there are lots of other animals that are endangered out here. One is the rhinoceros. The other is an animal called a pangolin. A pangolin is basically a scaly anteater. It looks kind of like a walking artichoke that eats ants, and it is nocturnal, and there is a huge trade in pangolins for their scales to be used in traditional good luck charms and medicine, just in the same way there's a trade in rhino horn to send the rhino horn overseas, something that's very sad. Vultures, lions throughout Africa, elephants throughout Africa, of course, are poached for their tusks, especially in countries, and we're lucky in South Africa, we don't have a massive problem with elephant poaching yet, but especially in countries that have come into civil unrest where there's some kind of a war going on, ivory from elephants' tusks pays for weapons, which is why you find that there's a lot of an increase in poaching. And giraffe are also quite endangered throughout Africa. So all of the animals out here, like all animals everywhere in the world, even if they're not classified yet as endangered or even vulnerable, are under pressure from human beings, constant pressure, just pushing into their space, pushing into their habitat. Now we're going to reposition again now that we've managed to make some space, because I definitely can't see the wild dogs. Now actually, I think we'll discuss this a little bit later, but for now, let's go over to Tayla, who is out on foot.
We are indeed, and we haven't had any luck, sadly, with finding our elephants. We've just had lots and lots of signs that they were once here. And we've got another one. Look at all these things that are on the ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There are so many of them. Now, if you've been watching for a while, like I know Hampton Oaks often joins in for the school drives, is that you'll remember we've spoken a lot about marula trees. And now that we're sitting here, there's not one marula tree in sight. Can you believe it? But they have this really, really delicious fruit that's high in vitamins, and particularly vitamin C. But inside that marula, there is a seed. And this is the big pit. And you can see that it looks like Look, can I show you what it looks like? It looks like a fish if I do that thing, if I do it that way. Don't you think? Big eyes, and then all you need is a tail and 2 fins, and you have a fish. It's even got a little mouth. No, this one doesn't have a little mouth. Sometimes they have another one, which looks like a mouth. Now, they're really cool because they've got these seeds in here. They're nuts, and you can eat them. But the elephants can't get those out, and it's actually quite difficult for us to take them out too. So, we have to break them open with a rock. But something like a squirrel, you can see where it was gnawing. If you look closely over there, a squirrel would have collected this from the elephant dung and then pulled all the flesh off and the skin off, and then picked the nut out with his sharp little teeth. It would have taken a little bit of time, but they've really perfected taking the nuts out of the marulas, which is really tasty. So that's why these are all here. So there must be a family of squirrels, actually maybe living in these dead trees. See here? There's lots and lots of little holes in this dead tree, and that would make the perfect cavity, the perfect little hole nest for a squirrel or even some birds. But I reckon that's why there are so many marula seeds here. That's just too much of a coincidence. Ashley, you've said that this is fun and really cool to learn about the different animals, isn't it? It's really nice, and we hope that you can all join us again. So an absolute big thank you to Oakland's oh my goodness, look at me, I can't even remember anything that I'm talking about. Kirsty, I've gone completely blank, and I've just said the school names. I know we've got Hampton Oaks, and I said your name earlier, and I went and I couldn't remember. I'm so sorry, guys. I have to make it up for you next time. And of course, Mount Horeb, thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to interacting with you again. And all your questions were wonderful today. But we're going to say goodbye to all of you, and we'll see you hopefully tomorrow for the sunset. No, tomorrow's Saturday. We won't see you, but we'll see you again sometime soon. But let's go back across to Jamie and the wild dogs.
Be there, and lots of people want to see. But just look at this amazing sight in front of us. James would be flabbergasted, I imagine, with his fascination with these tadpoles. These bullfrog tadpoles, and I'm pretty sure they're African bullfrogs, because this is where all of the fighting was happening after our big rains. They've grown their legs, their tails haven't quite disappeared, but they're already on their way out of the pan that they're in. And I don't blame them, because it is rapidly shrinking. However, they are facing a gauntlet in their mass exodus out of this particular pan, and it is a gauntlet I never would have expected, in the form of these ants. And these ants are gathered round, searching for the weakest link, and it's almost as though there's a standoff between these poor half frog, half tadpole things. Froglets, can we call them froglets? Oh, hop away, oh, investigating to see whether or not any of these tadpoles are dead. And if you look a little bit to the right there, Dave, I don't know if you can see a bit to the right there's some unfortunate victims of the ants' carnage. So if you look a little bit upwards, there we go. One froglet that just did not make it. 2 froglets that just did not make it. I never ever would have thought about that. As look, they're dragging. Look at the strength of these ants, dragging that massive froglet thing away from the water and towards their nest. This is astounding. I never ever would have thought about ants being a threat to tadpoles. But I suppose it makes total sense. Of course they are. Oh, that frog's still alive. Oh, that's horrible. I hate seeing stuff like that. It's still kicking. Oh, let's not linger too long on that, Dave. Shame. It's trying to fight back, but unfortunately it just doesn't have the strength. And remember how we said it is such a race for survival of these tadpoles when they're laid, and that's why there's that frantic breeding with the bullfrogs where they fight their way for mates. Because the puddles that they lay their eggs in and that the tadpoles hatch in, they shrink so rapidly. And on a day like today, if we get 2 more days like this, no, not even, if we get another day like this, these puddles are going to be gone. And I also can't help but think, imagine the existential crisis a tadpole must go through. I mean, it's worse than being a teenager and all of a sudden facing all of these peculiar hormones and confusion and growing up. Now all of a sudden you've gone from a water-based creature that swims around, and now you're developing lungs, you're developing legs, your tail's disappearing, and all of a sudden you've got this instinct to push out of the water itself and go off in search of other things. What a peculiar experience it must be. I can't get over their little leggies working so hard. There's one front runner, two front runners over there. And obviously also the oxygen levels of this water must be getting low. And they can breathe in the air now. But it must be one of the things that pushes them to move out. Look at them surging forward, using each other. This is astounding. And this is actually the joy of these live safaris. We saw that amazing bullfrog fight. Tayla had one before I did as well. And it was comical, but it was all part of the sort of the natural life cycle out here. And now we've got the end product right at that crucial point of their metamorphosis. Look at them all, gathered on the edge. I won't, but I could probably sit here all day. Now, speaking of World Wildlife Day, I'm not harping on about it, but it is important. Frogs are also a species that is under severe threat. Frogs are one of your key indicator species. If you have frogs in a water system, chances are that water system is okay in terms of its balance. But if you look at the standoff, and that's just because their skin is so sensitive to any kind of toxins in the water source. And it's one of the things that we've noticed in South Africa with the pollution of our waterways has been the severe drop in the number of frogs. Luckily, that's not something we have to contend with here, but it is a reality. Look at this. Lots and lots of stories, if you go looking for it, about pollution in the Olifants River, which flows right through the Kruger National Park. I can't believe I'm fascinated by these ants and these tadpoles. What do you think is going to be the outcome? There are just so many ants. How does this end? Now, Vulpine Wolf Girl, you wanted to know if they were drop-tailed ants. They're a bit too big for drop-tailed ants. Let me actually try and get a sense of perspective, because I'm busy looking at it through the monitor, and I'm not actually looking properly with my own eyes. My first thought was Polyrhacus ants, not drop-tails. But now I see what you mean about the drop-tailed. Good point. Very good point, Vulpine Wolf Girl. I think you're right. I think they are drop-tailed ants. I just was not paying attention. This is really amazing. I find it amazing anyway. Valid point from Susie, who'd like to know why they're trying to leave the water area without legs. They do have legs. Actually, if you look closely, you will see that they do have tiny little legs. Look, there's one hopping on the top there in the middle. If you look closely, you'll see their legs. Sorry. It's just their tails that haven't disappeared. But why they're trying to leave at this point, I think they've just run out of food. They've run out of oxygen. The water is now getting thick because it's evaporating, so it's becoming sort of sandier and muddier as the time goes on. And they just feel this drive to get out of here and perhaps towards a slightly bigger pan. And Chloe Lee, you want to know, well, how come I don't help them out if I'm sitting watching them go through the struggle? It's a good point. And it's one of those questions that we're always asked, and it's always a difficult balance to strike. Out here in the greater Kruger, the area is so vast that it is possible to let Mother Nature play out her cycles as she always has done. And so we have a policy of not interfering with the animals unless the position that they're in or the damage that's been done to them is caused by human beings. So, for example, if they're exposed to rabies, we will help out because that's been introduced by humans. If they're caught in a snare, we will help them out because that's been introduced by humans, and so on and so forth. But if it is a natural course, we will let it play out. The ants have got to eat too. They have capitalized on a situation that is working out very well for them. There you can see the legs as they hop along. It's always a question that we get asked and always a question that we not struggle with, but sometimes we want to help. Sometimes our desire is to help. It's never nice seeing an animal suffer, but it is part of nature, and you kind of, if you love nature, you have to like the good with the bad. You can see the way this ant is attacking them. Will any of them get out? I suppose so. Surely with that many numbers, the ants can't eat all of them. But it's who gets to go first? Who's going to be the sacrificial one? In a strange way, for some odd reason, I'm reminded of baby sea turtles trying to hatch and get to the water. I mean, they're not quite as cute, but it's just exactly what comes into my head for some reason. Obviously, it's not seagulls swooping down or crabs, the things that attack the sea turtle babies, but it still feels very similar. These ants are now taken on such a sinister feel, lurking on the water's edge, knowing that the frogs have to come out at some point. Isn't this incredible, Dave?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Taylor's absolutely right. Taylor says the ants are like the seagulls with sea turtles. And you can't hate, obviously you can't really choose sides, although one cannot help but feel sympathy for the little froglets, who haven't even got the strength or the coordination in their legs yet to face this journey. And that's why they're all gathered together. That makes so much more sense now. Cat in Ohio, another very valid point. Don't the adult frogs eat ants? Yes, they do. They eat all sorts of insects. So yes, absolutely. This is the circle of life, at its most circular. The ants eat the baby frogs, the adult frogs eat the ants. That is a very good point. Gosh. Look at them scrambling. They developed so quickly. When did Djuma come through? Does anyone remember? Help me, Dave. You and I were together at that bullfrog sighting. 2 weeks ago? Was it not more?
2 and a bit.
2 and a bit. When Djuma passed through and we had all that rain and we saw those bullfrogs fighting. It was before the end of the TV show, wasn't it? It was before the last TV show, which finished on the 20th of Feb. Okay, so 3-ish weeks ago. So it takes 3 weeks, there you go, perfect aging. Roughly 3 weeks from laying the eggs to reaching this point where the froglets have their legs but haven't got rid of their tails yet. Yes, Kingfisher, I know we're paying more attention to the frogs. Another really good question from Cat in Tampa. Do they grow into their tails, or does the tail sort of get sucked up and merged into their bodies? A little bit of both, but really it's the tail being reabsorbed into the body itself, as far as I understand it. So they will grow, certainly, and that will certainly take up a little bit of their tails, but they'll reuse and reabsorb the energy required for that growth from their tails. So there we go, that's the goal. That other pan. Sorry, I have a friend on my leg, I'll show you in a second.
I saw him this morning.
Did you see him this morning? He's still here.
But he probably disappearing.
Oh, well, there he is. There you go. Isn't that a beautiful mantid? It is so beautiful. Hello, my friend. Are you on my leg? Yes. You know, this is a decidedly uncomfortable position for myself, and, well, you seem to be okay with it. Me, on the other hand, It's quite uncomfortable, and the dashboard is digging into my Achilles tendon. Would you mind coming onto my hand instead? Yells? Yells? Here we go. That's much more comfortable for both me and probably the mantid as well, because I can't vouch for the state of my feet at this temperature. It's gorgeous. The colouring on that. Surely this is a mantid that would disappear very easily on lichen. Surely that would be the best camouflage spot for it. They're always so sinister looking. Beautiful. I'm just going to turn it slightly, Dave. So you can get an idea that it's got sort of basically transparent wings. It is really truly gorgeous. Look at that. Look at the colour of its wings. Beautiful. Okay. What shall we do with you? First you were on Brent's leg, now you're on my leg. Where would you like to be? What would your ideal wish be? How about I put you here on my monitor and you can watch what goes on? How does that sound? Yes? Yes. Definitely nodded. Definitely nodded. It's my birthday, I'm allowed to be quirky. There we go. Gone. After all that, Mia wanted to know why aren't the birds going after the tadpoles. I don't know, Mia. That is a very good question. Perhaps they just haven't been spotted yet. Perhaps life could just not bring itself to be that unfair that they have to face ants from the side and attack from above. I don't think they've been spotted, because I'm sure there are birds out here that would make an absolute meal of these tadpoles, including a kingfisher, although I think these might be a little bit big for kingfishers. I'm going to have to move everybody. Andrew's coming to say hello to us. Let me just shift out of your way. This has been fascinating. Wild dogs, froglets. Let's go and see how Tristan's lion search is going.
Well, Jamie, the search is not going well. It's so far no sign of them. I'm sure that if they've moved from the area that they were in, it's to go and find water. Now, the problem is, after all the rain we've had, we're riding along parallel with a riverbed at the moment, or drainage line, that goes into Buffelshoek Dam, and there's lots of water all over the place. So they could be at any of these little water points. So I'm just trying to see if I can find little gaps where I can have a look and have a little check out to see if they've maybe come this way for water. If they are not here, which let's hope that they are here, if they're not, then I'm going to check the boundary with Torchwood and Buffelshoek just to see if maybe they've crossed north or east and out of our area. But I'm very surprised that they've moved, because it's so warm today that it's not great weather for lions to be moving. But the thing is that when a male is trying to mate with a female, sometimes she's not interested in any way whatsoever, and she then will get up and move and walk quite fast to try and lose the male. So that's if she's not really wanting to mate. So they can move a little bit with that, but where they were lying for the day, you can see they spend most of the day there, because the grass is absolutely flattened in varying places around the tree. They obviously moved as the sun was moving, because the sun would have come from this side and come around, so they've moved around the tree in exactly the same way to try and get into that shade. And I think what happened is, I was having a look, is they got to a certain point and then I think they ran out of shade, and that's maybe why they've gotten up and moved. But still no sign of them here. I did check another little water hole that I thought they might have gone to. That's just off the fire break close to where we are here. And they definitely did not drink there. So if they did go to water, it's got to be in this little drainage area that we're in. It's right where the Nkuhuma spent most of last week as well. So I checked all those areas in case they picked up the scent of those Nkuhumas from last week. and they didn't go there either, so I'm not quite sure at this stage. But like I say, they're somewhere in this mess of little tight riverbeds and thickets. I'm sure they found a cozy little spot for a romantic weekend away. Oh, sorry. So we're in Jigger today, and Jigger has got a slightly different clutch to Wendy, who I've been driving mostly in the last few weeks. So it's all still getting used to Jigger at this stage. But there's a nice prominent game path as we're going along here that I'm following, and every now and then I'm just having a look down, just trying to see if there's any signs of them walking in this area, but I haven't as yet seen anything, and it's starting to get a little bit too thick for us to even get through here. So I'm going to start opting for sanctity and going up back towards the fire break. Now we followed these drainage lines all the way from Buffelshoek Dam, and we've come out at the mud wallow that I was talking about earlier that is on the fire break, so all the way along. Now if we had to go where they were lying earlier today, it is directly south of this, so this would be the perfect place. And like I said, we followed this all along. Now there is another one just on the other side, so they might still be in that one, and that could be where they are, but they're definitely not anywhere near here. So we're going to try and just loop around one more time and see if there's any sign of them. If there isn't, then I think we're going to carry on and come back a little bit later when it gets a bit cooler and see if maybe we can switch off and listen. You know, if they are mating, then there's going to be a lot of audio for them. They're going to make a lot of noise, and it'll be a lot easier to find them then. Also with the cooler weather, maybe they become a little bit more active and come out of the thicket that they're currently hiding in. So it's going to be quite tough unless one of them decides to wake up and move, or even better, to mate, because if they mate, then I can hear them. It's much easier to find them. I was hoping secretly that they were going to just be lying right out at Buffelshoek Dam on the dam wall, all regally posed, but I guess in this heat that's asking a little bit too much. Now Kirsty's saying to me that a lot of you are intrigued at the thought of mating lions. Now I'm not sure who exactly it is. I'm sure the male is a Birmingham. Well, I would like to think it's a Birmingham. Well, so Debbie from Vancouver, there we go, we're just going to get into this now. So I would imagine that it is a Birmingham boy. That would be my first guess in terms of the male. The female for me should be an Nkuhuma female, given that they've spent quite a bit of time in this area recently, which will be interesting. But the Nkuhumas, judging by all the scars and scrapes that they've got on them at the moment, could very well be that they've had a few altercations with the torchwood or Talamati prides, and they've been pushed a little bit, and maybe one of the Talamati females has ended up moving into this section, and that's who is here. So it'll be very interesting to find out who exactly this is and what they're up to. But all I know is Steph just told me it was a male and a female. He didn't tell me exactly who they were, and he was on walk, so he's not going to get too close to mate while on a bushwalk. Alright, so we're going to continue our search, and while we do this and try and solve the mystery that is our lions this afternoon, let's go across to Tayla and see what she's up to on her bushwalk.
We are approaching Twin Dams at the moment. My English is atrocious today, and I'm hoping that we're going to find Boris the Blade, the crocodile, out basking in the sun. But let's keep walking. And we've also come here, there's a couple of things as to why we've decided to come down this way. Firstly, for Boris, it would be nice to see him other than just his eyes and his nostrils poking out above the water. We came to check if the leopard cubs have perhaps crossed back into Djuma because they went south of our traverse this morning. And then the third thing is to find out whether there are any elephants around here. That's our sort of plan, and we're going to have a look around here. If that doesn't work, then we're going to go west or northwest, and hopefully we will find some giraffe, because we've been seeing a lot of giraffe between Twin Dams, Weaver's Nest, Treehouse Dam, all of these roads here, and I even saw one just off of Shibamo yesterday too, but we did see some this morning, so we know sort of where to look. I think let's take actually let's go this way around, and the reason why I want to do this way is because we're higher up, and I know that Boris likes to bask just down over there, and if we go that way I think he'll spot us, so we can maybe sneak around some of these leaves, but we're going to have to start to be a little bit more quieter. I've got to stop shouting now as we walk around here. My voice is very loud, because if he gets any wind of us when he is close to water, he will try and, well, swim into a place where he feels a little bit safe. It's quite intimidating to have people on foot, though we've had a couple of amazing sightings with him. We had one, and so did Brent, and he was fairly relaxed too. But I've noticed that when he's near this water and he has got an opportunity to go in the water and swim away, he will. He does that with the cars quite a bit. But maybe we'll see. Maybe he'll be different on foot. Now we've just got to be careful, because every time I've come through here in the cars, I've always bumped into a single buffalo walking on this exact pathway, but I haven't seen any tracks this afternoon, so we might be a little bit lucky, which should be great, because that's the last thing that I want to bump into, is one buffalo all on its own. I prefer to bump into a herd of buffaloes. Hang on, as we walk here, let's check these WildEarthTV for those mantises. Those flower mantises. They're very difficult to spot. They're very camouflaged. I know you had a mantis with Jamie. I'm not sure what type of mantis she had, if it was indeed the very camouflaged ones that look like flowers, because they seem to be all about at the moment. So you'll see. Oh, okay. So Kirsty's just said it wasn't a flower mantis. Okay, that's good. Maybe we can find a different one. And we've actually been having lots of fun with the mantises at the moment, especially around camp, as we've got lights and with all the electricity, and it's attracting a lot of the smaller insects which the praying mantises are feeding on. So we're seeing, I don't even know what they're called, if they're called giant mantises, but they're massive. They're at the length of my hand, which is quite impressive. And to hold one of those is actually quite intimidating. Craig is the praying mantis whisperer. David, hello. You're wondering what is the difference between a mantis and a mantid? I'm not sure, but they are called praying mantis. Is it maybe the plural? A mantis and many mantid? I've actually got absolutely no idea what the difference is there. You'll have to have a quick look on the interweb as to see what the differences between the two are. I'm trying to think, because you don't call any of the younger stages mantas. You call them nymphs. So they become... Hang on, I just heard a noise. And when you hear a noise out in the bush, you actually have to listen to it. Let's just quickly check the wind. I don't know what it was. Rexon seems very relaxed up in front. Okay. Wind is blowing down to the west. Okay. Yes, as guides we've evolved from the sock to the eyedropper bottle, because this way it doesn't leak everywhere and ruin anything in your backpack or ruin your clothes if you tie it to your belt. I prefer this. And I think it's not very modern, not much more modern than a sock. And so I'm not sure what the difference is there, but we'll have a look. And if anybody does know the answer, please share it with us. #SafariLive on Twitter. And it would be great to hear from you. It's impossible to know everything out here. And, well, we all learn together, don't we? We're at the dam. Let's start walking straight towards the water's edge now. And what we'll do is we've got lots of biting flies on me this afternoon, which is lovely. No worry bush just yet, but there's some worries down there. So I think we'll take a branch so that I can swat flies and then swat Craig when he walks too slowly. And then also, hopefully we'll sneak up on this crocodile. Let's have a look. And I'm so glad that the carrot seed grass is gone, because it's not in my shoes anymore and in my socks, which is wonderful. Come, Craig. Come, Craig. Now, straight away, he normally likes to bask just here, just on the sandy patch, just as the grass sort of disappears and it becomes sand. So I don't see him. So I wonder if he's still lurking over here. Maybe even the sun was too much for him today. and he's decided to stick in the shade a bit. We'll just creep a little bit closer down here. And when you are approaching a dam like this, it's actually nice to make use of these shrubs and this bit of cover, because if you were to come around the other side, you can see now that there's lots of big gaps that you would be exposed by, and you can't really see around all the corners. You see there, you'll show yourself, whereas the way we've come, it's quite nice. We've hopped behind shrub to shrub, and we're only just starting to see the water now. But then we'll also be on higher ground, which is something you must definitely keep in mind. Especially if you come across to a watering point, you find yourselves, you could run into a herd of a big group of animals, not just individuals. And you want to have an upper advantage. You don't want to surprise anybody. So this is quite nice with all these shrubberies. Have a look. Also make sure that there's no lions laying underneath the shade of the tree. Got to be careful. Let's see. There he is. There's Boris. You see him? Just in the middle. Not basking at all. He's just gone under the water. You probably just see ripples. You might be able to hear the Egyptian geese squawking at us. Let's see, he'll come up. He'll definitely pop up. There's the Egyptian geese, Mr. and Mrs. Hippo, that live around here. There they go. Now they're alarming at us. They're not alarming at that crocodile. They're shouting, saying, "Oh my gosh, humans have arrived." I don't know why they're so scared of us. We come here all the time, but they'll eventually relax like the leopards can. And our crocodiles is actually not very fond of us today at all. He has completely submerged himself, and well, he's not coming up. So you may not have even seen him. You may have just had a couple of ripples. Let's see, he has to come up though. And he loves this dam, and I hope that it stays full like this, that it holds enough water for this crocodile. They do like a lot more deeper water than a hippo would enjoy, just because it doesn't matter. They'll swim right to the bottom, sit on the bottom. They can go into the middle of the water, and of course they can skim along the surface, whereas hippos, they prefer that shallower water because they're walking along the bottom rather than actually swimming. Come on, Boris. Now, this pan, like I was saying, it's amazing because it's got lots of water in at the moment. I'm not sure how long it's going to stay like this, especially if we're going to have hot days like we did have today. Everybody's going to be drinking lots of water. Water will be evaporating. And Reese, you're actually wondering, how long would a crocodile stay in a pan like this? It depends. We saw Boris in here, I think, for about a week, maybe a week and a half. And then the crocodile actually got up and moved 2 miles. Maybe about 2 miles, I'd be safe to say, to a smaller pan that wasn't that great, had a bit of more mud than water in. Decided that's not going to do it any good, and then went and sat into a drainage line. Then it disappeared. It crossed into Buffelshoek, Hook, and eventually it's made its way back. Whether it's the same crocodile or not, I'm not sure, but we'll have to wait. We'll see if it's got a pattern. If this crocodile leaves and we find it in the north again, we might find that it's just following a similar route. But after those big rains, this is ideal. There's a lot of animals coming down here to drink. It's perfect. Our crocodile's not playing ball today. It's hiding away from us. And there's potential to have lots of opportunities to catch things, so something to eat. And well, there's enough water. There's a nice sandy bank for it to rest on. Not good quality, unfortunately, for laying eggs. So they'd go to Chitwa for a nesting site. The sand, I don't think, is very soft. It's sort of more like hard clay at the moment, with there not being much water around. And the crocodiles need that loose sort of soil and sand so that they can dig holes and then lay their eggs inside. It seems as though, like I said, have one last look at our crocodile before it ducks. No! Just went under again, as I pointed it out. It seems as though this crocodile can understand English and is a little bit camera shy this afternoon. We'll try again tomorrow morning. Jamie is back with the dogs. I know they were awake earlier. Let's go see what they're up to.
They are wide awake and up and moving once again. Sorry, puppies. These two shot out right next to us. There we go. There they are. And they are up on the move. And this is where things get very exciting as they start to move off. Lovely. And they're going to start hunting. Apparently the rest of the pack has already moved a little bit further to the north. There they go. Slowly but surely. This is very sedate movement for a pack of wild dogs. Not quite willing to get moving just yet. Slow and steady start to the afternoon. The warm-up before the sprint. I'm so glad we're with these creatures for on this particular day. There's something I was going to say. Oh yes, I remember what it was. Brent mentioned this morning the fact that it is now breeding season for wild dogs, mating season. And I noticed when we came back to, I just brought some of the ladies from FC and the various crew members who don't get to go out on drive as often as we do. I brought them out to come and watch them. And while we were there, we noticed two of them get up and move separate from the rest of the pack. And that seems to be the alpha. One of them's got a big injury on his bottom. That is the alpha male, apparently. So the two of them, the alpha male and the alpha female, are now separating from the rest of the group. And we saw it again when we went to go and see them. Oh, I hear some noises. Wet dog smell. Let me make sure I'm not about to reverse into one of them. I'm going to catch up with our wild dogs, but it seems as though Tristan has achieved his goal for the afternoon. Let's go and have a look at those lions.
Well, not so much we achieved. We luckily had some help from Taxon. So Taxon managed to locate them, and they are right where we were, just a little bit further west than where we actually checked. So had we just come along the road, we would have bumped into them. As you can see, they're busy lying right slap bang in the middle of the road. So I wonder if they didn't find water. There's another drainage line just south of us that I did check a little bit, but I obviously didn't check far enough east. And so they obviously crossed from there and have come up and lay on this road. Now, it's difficult to see who it is because at the moment all I've got is their backsides. I can't see much of who these actually are, but we'll try and go around just now. The only thing that I'm worried about is there's a big mound of soil on the other side, and that might obscure their faces a little bit. So we'll sit here for a little bit and just be patient. I'm sure in time we will get lucky and they will stand up, and hopefully we'll even get to see them mating. It would be really, really nice as if we did have them doing a little bit of mating this afternoon. And like I say, that will also help with us being able to identify who they actually are. From their backsides, very, very difficult, that's for sure. Now, this is typical of what I would have expected from them. I would have thought that they would have spent their whole day lying like this, where it's hot and it's been very warm, that it's not really great conditions for lions to be moving. But like I say, with mating, they do get up and move a little bit all the time, so it's probably why they have moved. Now, they're going to rest like this, and I'm sure as it starts to get a little bit cooler, we're going to see these lions start to be able to get up and hopefully mate a little bit and hopefully go for some water. Now, the waterhole that we checked just now, that I was saying that this is the little pan, is probably about 400 meters behind us, so it's not far for them to get up and go and have a look. But from their direction that they've traveled during the day today, it looks like they're heading back into Buffalo's Hook or Torchwood. We're right up in that far corner at the moment, so that's the direction that they look like they're going to be taking. So I don't think these guys will be around tomorrow, unfortunately. But it's really nice that we've got them this afternoon, and if it is one of the Nkuhumas, that's also exciting news, because the Nkuhumas like to den here in Djuma, and so hopefully, if all goes well, then in 95 to 100 days we should end up with little lion cubs running around. And like I say, they do like to den here on Djuma, so they will spend quite a bit of time around here then, and that will hopefully bring the rest of the pride back into the area, and we'll get lots and lots of sightings of them like we did last winter. It seems like this is the Nkuhuma trait. They tend to mate through the summers and then in the winter time back into Djuma where they spend their winters. And it's a good place to be because of all the water that is around the Djuma property. There's lots of little pans around. That sucks in a lot of buffalo bulls that stay through the winter months in small little groupings of buffalo, and so it's a great place for hunting lions to be able to feed their cubs. Also lots of little riverbeds and drainage lines, which are the perfect place for a lioness to put a den site. But what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to try and just reposition ourselves here. So, quite curious. I believe a lot of you are curious as to whether this is amber eyes. Well, I'm quite curious too. So let's see if we can answer and just go around and have a little look. So it looks like the biggest of the Birminghams. I can't see nicely. I'm just going to go round, but it looks like the biggest of the Birminghams. So Nena is, I think, his name. I'm still getting used to all the names for these Birminghams. It's when we were guiding at Simambili, we didn't have names for them, and I know that Brent and WildEarth came up with some names, and that was kind of just at the end of when we were now really know their names too well. But this is
Hello, look what we've just found. Apologies for Tristan just disappearing like that. Gremlins are out. Now, I've actually picked up this beetle. I'm going to put it back down. Actually, before I do, I'm going to show you. It was, I don't know what happened, but I think I rescued it. But it is mating beetles, and I don't want to bother them for too much, like I said. But they've mounted, so should we put them down and see if they actually start mating? I think we should do that. He's been after her. And it looked like, I don't know what happened, but we found them, they were upside down, so I just turned them the right way, trying to figure out what they were doing, and here they are. And let's see if they start mating again, or if they actually, I don't even know if they were mating in the beginning, but they've assumed the position, and this is really, really interesting. This is a beetle I haven't seen for a very long time, but you get many, many different types of beetles, and this particular one is a Toki beetle, and then again within the family of the Tokis you get different subspecies too. Now the ones that I'm used to in the Eastern Cape are about 3 times their size. They are massive beetles, and you'd always see them coming out just at dusk, just as the sun had fallen, which is really amazing. But what Toki beetles do, it's quite cool, is the way that they communicate is that they bang their abdomen on the ground. So sometimes, and I used to get this right in the Eastern Cape, is that I would find one big Toki making its way across a pathway, and then I would go with a stick or my finger like that, and you'd wait a little bit, and then the Toki would reply by banging its abdomen back on the ground again. It took a bit of practice, but eventually you would get it right. Because remember, even though bird calls, for example, sound the same, each of them are slightly different. And the same goes with beetles. So the way that they communicate, one of the ways, by banging their abdomens on the ground. In the case of the Toki beetle, they'll have a different, well, rhythm, I suppose, and song that they would like to sing. So if you could just get it right, however many beats that Toki beetle was doing, he genuinely would respond. It almost worked every single time. Like I said, it took a bit of practice in the beginning, but once you got it right, it was really quite something. But I'm actually, you know what I'm going to do? There are people driving up and down here, and they are so small, I don't want them to get squashed. So I just hid them away. Don't tell anybody though. Just push them off the road. And underneath the grass there, it was a little bit naughty of me. But it seems as though Tristan has fought off of those gremlins. So let's go back across and figure out who are those lions.
Indeed we have. We've used a bit of ninja skills and gotten rid of the gremlins. No, I lie. We've just reversed a sum total of about 1 meter, and that seems to have done the trick. So from the looks of it, it looks like the youngest female from the Nkuhuma Pride and Nena from the Birmingham Boys, which is quite a nice couple. They're both beautiful lions. I really like this young female. She's got this little pink nose and then these beautiful eyes, and she's gotten really big. She's small when I started. She always was the tiny of the group, and now she's a really large girl, and it would be difficult to see them apart. In fact, actually, I was watching a clip the other day of her and Amber Eyes walking together down the road. And for those of you that are new viewers and not sure who Amber Eyes is, she's another one of the lionesses from the Nkuhuma Pride, and she's actually a little bit taller than Amber Eyes, so she stands slightly bigger. And look at that, isn't he spectacular? So let's see if they're going to mate. Now he's sniffing. You can see as soon as her tail's up, he's sniffing to see. So you can see she was unhappy with him following her, which is quite typical of these mating lions. You can see he's just walking past the cars there. So we are in an area where we do have commercial operations, and they are going to mate. So I'm going to try and roll forward slightly. There we go. You can see now, watch this process. It will be quite quick, and can go in a little tighter there. And there we go. So you can listen. Now, it doesn't seem like they're actually mating properly. It seems as though it's still a little bit hot and no one's really getting this right too much. So, a bit of a failed attempt. But let's just reposition ourselves here. Come on. Chiga, come on. There we go. So Jigga is giving me a little bit of a problem with the reverse gear at the moment. So I'm just trying to get him into it and trying to just reposition ourselves so that we can actually see what's going on, because they lay right behind that other vehicle, which is not ideal. So we're going to try and position ourselves a little bit further afield and give